I thought the Nile would be peaceful. I thought it would be the trip that would finally bring us back together. Sarah and I had spent months planning this. We wanted something different, something that felt real. Egypt seemed perfect. Ancient temples, golden sunsets, a river that had been there for thousands of years. We booked a small traditional boat, just us and the crew. No crowds, no noise. We imagined quiet dinners on the deck, wine under the stars, waking up to the sound of water against the hull. We wanted romance. We wanted to feel alive again. But what we got was silence. The wrong kind of silence. The kind that makes your stomach turn. The kind that comes when you realize the people smiling at you aren't your friends. They never were. It started small. A canceled stop. A locked door. A conversation that ended the moment we walked into the room. Sarah noticed it first. She always does. She said the crew was watching us. I told her she was being paranoid. I told her to relax. I was wrong. By the second day, we weren't passengers anymore. We were something else. Something they wanted to keep. The boat that had felt like freedom suddenly felt like a cage. A floating cage in the middle of a river with nowhere to run. No other tourists, no witnesses. Just us, the crew, and miles of water on every side. The captain stayed locked in his cabin. The sailors stopped pretending to be friendly, and when we tried to leave, they blocked the way. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They just stood there. And that was worse. I don't know what they wanted from us. I don't know what would have happened if we had stayed. But I know this. When you're trapped on a boat in the middle of the Nile, surrounded by men who won't let you leave, every second feels like your last. The romantic trip we had dreamed about turned into the worst nightmare of our lives. And if we hadn't jumped, if we hadn't fought our way to the shore, I don't think we would have made it out. This is what happened to us in Egypt. This is how our dream became a nightmare. Before we continue, please comment below what city you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. My name is Ryan Collins. I'm 33 years old. I live in Austin, Texas. I work in software development. Long hours, stress, deadlines that never end. Sarah is my girlfriend. She's 30. She works in marketing. Same story. Long hours. No time for us. We had been together for 5 years, and somewhere along the way we stopped really seeing each other. We were roommates who kissed goodnight. That's it. No dates. No conversations that mattered. Just work and sleep and work again. One night Sarah looked at me and said, we needed to do something. Something big. Something that would remind us why we fell in love in the first place. I agreed. We started looking at trips. Europe felt too easy. Asia felt too far. Then Sarah found the Nile cruise. She showed me photos of the river at sunset. Small wooden boats. Temples on the shore. It looked quiet. It looked real. We booked it the same night. We flew into Cairo in early October. The heat hit us the moment we stepped off the plane. Dry. Heavy. Different from Texas heat. We spent 2 days in the city. Pyramids, markets, crowds everywhere. It was loud and chaotic and amazing, but we were ready for the quiet part, the part where it would just be us. We took a train south to Luxor. The landscape changed, green fields, palm trees, the desert in the distance. The Nile ran alongside the tracks, wide and brown and calm. Sarah held my hand and smiled. She looked happy. I hadn't seen her look like that in months. We arrived in Luxor in the afternoon. Our contact met us at the station. His name was Karim. He was in his 50s. Friendly. He spoke good English. He told us the boat was ready. He said the crew was experienced. He said we would love it. We followed him through narrow streets to the dock. The boat was smaller than I expected. Maybe 40 feet long. Wooden. 2 levels. A small cabin below, an open deck on top. It looked old but well kept, the kind of boat you see in documentaries. Traditional, simple. There were 4 crew members waiting on the deck. They waved when they saw us. They smiled. They helped us with our bags. One of them brought us tea. Sweet, hot. It tasted like hibiscus. Sarah loved it. The captain introduced himself. His name was Rashid. Older guy. Maybe 60. Gray beard. Calm voice. He told us the trip would take 5 days. He said we would stop at temples along the way. He said the river was safe. He said we were in good hands. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Everything felt right. The sun was setting. The water was glowing orange. The boat rocked gently as we sat on the deck. Sarah leaned against me. She said this was exactly what we needed. I agreed. I really did. We left the dock just before dark. The engine hummed softly. The boat moved slowly down the river. The city lights faded behind us. Soon it was just us and the water and the stars. One of the sailors brought us dinner. Rice, grilled chicken, vegetables. Simple food, but it tasted good. We ate on the deck. No phones. No distractions. Just conversation. Real conversation. We talked about work. About us. About what we wanted for the future. Sarah said she wanted to travel more. She said she didn't want to waste her life in an office. I told her I felt the same way. We stayed up late. The crew was quiet. They moved around the boat doing their jobs. They didn't bother us. It felt peaceful. The first morning on the Nile was perfect. I woke up to sunlight coming through the small cabin window. The boat was still moving. I could hear the water. I could hear birds. Sarah was still asleep. I went up to the deck. The air was cool. The river stretched out in every direction. Fields on both sides. A few farmers working near the shore. Small villages in the distance. It was beautiful in a quiet way. Not the kind of beauty you see in magazines. Just real. Simple. One of the sailors was making coffee. He handed me a cup. He didn't say much. Just nodded and went back to work. I liked that. No forced conversation. No fake friendliness. Just quiet. Sarah came up an hour later. She sat next to me and we watched the river together. The boat passed a small island covered in reeds. A few birds took off as we went by. Sarah took photos. Not a lot. Just a few. She said she didn't want to experience everything through a screen. I agreed. We just sat there. The sun got higher. The temperature rose. But it wasn't unbearable. The breeze from the river kept it comfortable. Around mid-morning, the captain slowed the boat. He said we were approaching the first temple. Kamambo. He said we would stop for 2 hours. The boat pulled up to a small dock. There were a few other boats already there. Tourists getting off. Tour guides holding flags. It was busier than I expected, but not crowded. We got off the boat and walked up to the temple. It was massive. Stone columns. Carvings everywhere. Hieroglyphs. Statues. Sarah was amazed. She kept stopping to look at details. I took photos of her standing in front of the columns. She looked happy. Really happy. We spent an hour walking through the temple. A local guide approached us and offered a tour, but we said no. We wanted to do it on our own. No script. No explanations. Just us and the history. When we got back to the boat, the crew was waiting. They helped us on board. One of them offered us water. Cold. It tasted incredible. We left the dock and continued down the river. Lunch was served on the deck. Bread. Cheese, olives, hummus. Simple again, but good. The crew ate separately, below deck. I didn't see much of them during meals. Just one or two would come up to bring food or clear plates. They were polite, quiet, professional. Sarah said she liked that. She said it felt like we had the boat to ourselves. I agreed. It was exactly what we wanted. That afternoon we just relaxed. We read, we talked, we napped in the shade. The boat kept moving. Slow, steady. The sound of the engine was almost soothing, like white noise. I felt more relaxed than I had in years. By evening we were far from any city, just river and fields and desert in the distance. The sun started to set. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. It was the kind of sunset you can't explain. You just have to see it. Sarah and I stood at the front of the boat and watched. She held my hand. She said this was the best decision we ever made. I kissed her. I told her I loved her. I meant it. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were really together. Not just going through the motions. Actually together. Dinner that night was similar to the first. Rice, meat, vegetables. The crew brought it up and left us alone. We ate slowly. We drank wine we had brought from Luxor. We talked about the temples we would see the next day. Edfu, Esna, names we had only read in guidebooks. Now we were actually here. Actually doing it. After dinner, we stayed on the deck. The stars came out. Thousands of them. More than you ever see in the city. The Milky Way stretched across the sky. It was overwhelming in the best way. Sarah said she felt small. I said I felt the same. We stayed out there until late. The crew had gone below deck. The boat was silent except for the water. It felt like we were the only people in the world. The second day started the same. Coffee, sunrise, the boat moving slowly down the river. But something felt different. I couldn't explain it. Nothing had changed. The crew was still polite. The river was still calm. But there was a tension I hadn't noticed before. Maybe I was imagining it. Sarah didn't say anything, so I figured it was just me. We were supposed to stop at another temple that morning. The captain had mentioned it the night before. Edfu. He said it was one of the best preserved temples in Egypt. We were excited. But when the time came, the boat didn't stop. It just kept going. I went to find one of the crew members. I asked him why we weren't stopping. He said the captain decided to skip it. He said it was too crowded. He said we would stop somewhere better later. I didn't argue. I just said okay. But it bothered me. Sarah noticed too. She asked me what was wrong. I told her it was nothing. Just a change of plans. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. By midday, the boat was in a section of the river I hadn't seen before. No other boats, no villages, just water and empty land on both sides. The fields were gone. It was mostly sand and rock now. The desert was closer. I asked one of the sailors where we were. He just pointed ahead and said we were on schedule. That didn't answer my question. Sarah was sitting on the deck reading. I sat next to her. She closed her book and looked at me. She said something felt off. I asked her what she meant. She said the crew was acting strange. I told her they seemed the same to me. She shook her head. She said they were watching us. I laughed. I told her she was being paranoid. She didn't laugh back. She just looked at me and said she wasn't imagining it. I paid more attention after that. I watched the crew when they moved around the boat. Sarah was right. They did watch us. Not in an obvious way. But I would catch them looking. And when I looked back, they would turn away quickly. It happened multiple times. One of them would walk past and glance at us. Another would stand near the cabin door and stare for a few seconds before going below. It wasn't normal. I started to feel uneasy. I told myself it was nothing. Cultural differences. Maybe they were just curious about American tourists. But the feeling didn't go away. That afternoon we were supposed to stop again. Another temple. I don't remember the name. The captain had mentioned it at breakfast. But when the time came, we sailed right past it. I saw the temple on the shore. I saw other boats docked there. Tourists walking around. But our boat didn't even slow down. I stood up and went to find the captain. His cabin was at the back of the boat. Small door. Always closed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. One of the sailors came up behind me. He asked what I needed. I said I wanted to talk to the captain. He said the captain was busy. I said I just wanted to know why we weren't stopping. The sailor smiled. Not a friendly smile. Just a smile. He said the schedule changed. He said we would stop tomorrow. Then he walked away. I stood there for a moment, confused, frustrated, but I didn't push it. I went back to Sarah. She was standing at the railing looking at the water. I told her what happened. She turned to me and said we needed to get off the boat. I asked her what she meant. She said something was wrong. She said we should ask to be let off at the next village. I told her she was overreacting. I said it was just a schedule change. She grabbed my arm. She looked me in the eyes. She said she wasn't overreacting. She said the crew had been talking about us. I asked her how she knew. She said she heard them. Below deck. She had gone down to use the bathroom and heard voices. She didn't understand the words, but she heard our names. Ryan. Sarah. Over and over. She said their tone wasn't friendly. It was cold. Calculated. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me still thought she was imagining things. But the look on her face told me she was serious. We decided to stay on the deck for the rest of the day. We didn't go below. We didn't talk to the crew unless we had to. Dinner was brought up like usual. Rice, meat, bread. We ate quickly. We didn't drink wine. We wanted to stay alert. After dinner, the crew started to close off parts of the boat. One of them put a rope across the stairs that led to the upper deck. He said it was for safety. He said the railing was loose. I had been up there that morning. The railing was fine. Another sailor closed the door to the cabin area. He said it needed cleaning. But I could see through the window. Nothing was being cleaned. They were just blocking access. Sarah looked at me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I knew what she was thinking. We were being contained. Night came fast. The sun dropped below the horizon and everything went dark. The boat had small lights, but they barely lit the deck. The crew disappeared below. We were alone. Sarah sat close to me. She was shaking, not from cold, from fear. I put my arm around her. I told her we would figure it out. I told her we would be okay. But I didn't believe my own words. I was scared too. I just didn't want to show it. We sat there for an hour, maybe more, just listening. The boat engine, the water, footsteps below deck, voices, low, muffled. We couldn't make out words, but we could hear the tone. Serious, tense, planning something. Around midnight, one of the sailors came up. The young one, Ahmed. He was maybe 25. He had been the quietest of the crew. He walked over to us slowly. He didn't look at us directly. He said we should go to bed. I asked him why. He said it was late. I said we were fine where we were. He hesitated. Then he leaned in closer. He whispered. He said we should stay in our cabin tonight. He said we should lock the door. Then he walked away, fast, like he didn't want to be seen talking to us. Sarah grabbed my hand. She said we needed to leave, now. I agreed, but how? We were in the middle of the river, no land close enough to swim to, no other boats in sight. We were trapped. We went to our cabin. It was small. One bed, a tiny window, a door with a weak lock. Sarah pushed a chair against the door. I checked the window. It didn't open. We sat on the bed. Neither of us could sleep. We just listened. Footsteps above us. Voices. The boat rocking gently. Every sound made us jump. At some point I must have dozed off because I woke up to Sarah shaking me. She said she heard something. I listened. Footsteps. Right outside our door. Slow. Deliberate. Then the handle turned. Slowly. The lock clicked, but the door didn't open. The chair held it. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then they walked away. Sarah was crying. Quiet tears. I held her. I didn't know what else to do. Morning came. Gray light through the window. I opened the door carefully. The deck was empty. I went up. No one. Just the boat moving down the river. The captain was in his cabin. I could see him through the window. He was on a radio, talking to someone. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I knocked on his window. He looked at me. No expression. Then he turned away and kept talking. I knocked again. Harder. He ignored me. I felt anger rise in my chest. I wanted to break the door down, but I knew that would make things worse. I went back to Sarah. I told her we needed a plan. We spent the morning trying to figure out what to do. The boat was still moving, still in the middle of the river. No villages, no other boats, just endless water. Sarah said we should try to use the radio. I said the captain had it locked in his cabin. She said maybe there was another one. We searched the deck. Nothing. We went below. Carefully. Quietly. We checked the small storage areas, ropes, tools, supplies. No radio, no phone. No way to contact anyone. We were completely cut off. Around noon the boat slowed down. I thought maybe we were finally stopping. I went to the railing and looked. There was a small village on the shore. Mud houses. A few boats. People. We could get help there. I turned to find Sarah. She was already next to me. We both had the same thought. We needed to get off. Now. We waited until the boat got close to the dock. Then we grabbed our bags and headed to the gangway. 2 sailors were standing there, blocking the way. I said we wanted to get off. One of them shook his head. He said we couldn't. I asked why. He said the captain's orders. I said we paid for this trip and we wanted to leave. He didn't move. He just stood there, arms crossed. The other sailor moved closer. Bigger guy, intimidating. I looked at Sarah. She was pale, terrified. I turned back to the sailors. I said we had rights. They said nothing. The boat started moving again, away from the dock, away from the village, away from any chance of escape. Sarah broke down. She sat on the deck and cried. I didn't know what to do. I felt helpless, useless. I sat next to her and held her. I told her we would get out of this. I told her I wouldn't let anything happen to her. But I had no plan. No idea how to make that promise real. The sailors walked away. They went below deck. I could hear them talking, louder now, more animated, laughing. It made my skin crawl. We were a joke to them. We were trapped and they knew it. And they were enjoying it. The rest of the day was a blur. We stayed on the deck. We didn't eat. We didn't talk much. We just sat there, watching the river, watching the shore, looking for any opportunity. But there was nothing. The boat kept moving. The crew kept watching. By evening we were even more isolated. The river had widened. The shores were further away. The desert stretched out on both sides. Empty. Lifeless. The sun set. Another beautiful sky. But it didn't matter anymore. Beauty meant nothing when you were a prisoner. That night we didn't go to our cabin. We stayed on the deck. We sat with our backs against the cabin wall, where we could see anyone coming. The crew didn't bother us. They stayed below, but we could hear them, talking, laughing, planning. We didn't know what they wanted. Money? Ransom? Something worse? We didn't know. And that was the worst part. Not knowing. Just waiting. Just hoping we would survive. The third morning I woke up stiff and sore. We had spent the night on the deck. Sarah was leaning against me, still asleep. The sun was just coming up. The boat was anchored. I could tell because the engine was off. Just the sound of water lapping against the hull. I looked around. No crew in sight. I gently moved Sarah and stood up. My legs ached. I walked to the railing and looked out. We were in the middle of nowhere. Both shores were far, maybe half a mile on each side. The water was calm, brown, murky. I couldn't see the bottom. Swimming wasn't an option. Not that far. Not in that current. I felt trapped all over again. Sarah woke up. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. She asked if anything had happened. I said no. She nodded and stood up. We both stretched, tried to shake off the stiffness. Then we heard footsteps, coming from below, heavy, slow. 2 sailors came up, not Ahmed, the other 2, older guys. One of them was carrying a tray. Bread, cheese, tea. He set it down on the small table near the cabin. He didn't say anything, just looked at us. Then they both went back down. Sarah and I looked at each other. Neither of us touched the food. We didn't trust it. We didn't trust anything anymore. An hour passed. The boat started moving again, slow, deliberate. I went to the front and tried to see where we were going. Just more river, more desert, no landmarks, no signs of civilization. I felt my chest tighten. Panic was setting in. I tried to control it. I took deep breaths. I told myself to think, to stay calm. But it was hard. Every minute on that boat felt like we were moving further from safety, further from any chance of escape. Sarah came up beside me. She asked what we were going to do. I said I didn't know. She said we had to do something. I agreed. But what? We spent the next few hours trying to come up with a plan. We couldn't overpower the crew. There were 4 of them, maybe 5 if the captain got involved. We couldn't swim to shore, too far, too dangerous. We couldn't call for help. No phone, no radio. The only option was to wait for another stop, another village, another dock, and somehow get past the sailors. But after yesterday, I knew they wouldn't let us off. They had made that clear. Sarah suggested we try talking to Ahmed again, the young one. He had warned us. Maybe he would help. I said it was worth a try. We waited until afternoon. The heat was brutal. The sun beat down on the deck. There was no shade, no breeze, just relentless heat. We drank water from the bottles in our cabin. We rationed it. We didn't know how long we would need to make it last. Around 3 o'clock, Ahmed came up. He was carrying a bucket, washing something. I approached him slowly. I said his name. He looked up, nervous. I asked if we could talk. He glanced around, then nodded. Quick. I asked him what was happening, why we couldn't leave. He didn't answer right away. He kept looking over his shoulder. Then he whispered. He said it wasn't supposed to be like this. I asked what he meant. He said we were supposed to have other passengers, a German couple, but they canceled last minute. He said the captain was angry. He said the trip wasn't profitable with just 2 people. I didn't understand. I said we paid, full price. Ahmed shook his head. He said the captain wanted more. He said they were waiting for instructions, from someone. He didn't say who. I felt my stomach drop. Instructions. That meant this was planned. This wasn't just a schedule change or a misunderstanding. This was intentional. I asked Ahmed what they were going to do with us. He said he didn't know. He said he was just told to keep us on the boat, to make sure we didn't leave. I asked if he would help us. He looked terrified. He said he couldn't. He said if the others found out he would be in trouble. Big trouble. I begged him. I said we just wanted to go home. He looked at Sarah. She was standing a few feet away, tears in her eyes. He hesitated. Then he said there was a small boat, a dinghy, tied to the back. He said it was used for emergencies. He said if we could get to it, we might be able to row to shore. But he said the crew watched it. He said it would be hard, maybe impossible. Then he walked away. Fast, before anyone saw him talking to us. Sarah came over. She asked what he said. I told her. About the dinghy. About the plan. She asked if we could do it. I said I didn't know. But it was the only option we had. We spent the rest of the afternoon watching the crew, figuring out their patterns. There were usually 2 on deck. One steering. One doing maintenance or just standing around. The other 2 were below, including the captain. The dinghy was at the back, tied with a rope, covered with a tarp. We would have to untie it, get in, lower it into the water, and row. All without being seen or stopped. It seemed impossible. but we had to try. Night came. We agreed to wait until everyone was asleep, or at least below deck. We sat on the deck pretending to be calm, pretending to accept our situation. One of the sailors brought dinner. We ate a little. Just enough to not raise suspicion. Then we waited. The crew finished their work. One by one they went below. The lights on the deck dimmed. Only a few small bulbs stayed on. The boat kept moving. Slower now. The engine hummed quietly. We waited another hour, making sure. Then Sarah looked at me. She nodded. It was time. We moved slowly, carefully, toward the back of the boat. Every step felt loud. Every creak of the wood made us freeze. But no one came up. We reached the dinghy. It was small, maybe 10 feet long, old. I pulled back the tarp. There were oars inside. Good. I started untying the rope. My hands were shaking. The knot was tight. I worked at it. Sarah kept watch. She was looking toward the stairs, toward the cabin, listening. I got the first knot loose, then the second. The dinghy shifted. I held it steady. Then I heard it. Footsteps, coming up the stairs. Sarah grabbed my arm. We both froze. A sailor appeared. Not Ahmed, one of the older ones. He saw us immediately. His eyes went wide. Then he shouted, loud, angry, in Arabic. We didn't wait. I grabbed Sarah and pulled her toward the side of the boat. The sailor ran at us. I pushed Sarah over the railing. She screamed. Then I jumped. The water was cold. Colder than I expected. I went under. The current pulled me. I kicked hard, came up gasping. I looked around. Sarah was a few feet away, struggling. I swam to her, grabbed her. The boat was still moving, pulling away from us. I could hear shouting. The sailor was at the railing, pointing, yelling. The boat started to turn. They were coming back for us. I looked at the shore. It was far, too far, but we had no choice. I told Sarah to swim. She was crying, terrified, but she started swimming. I stayed next to her. We kicked. We pulled. The water was thick, heavy. It felt like it was pulling us down. The boat was getting closer. I could hear the engine, louder, faster. They were coming. I looked back. The boat was maybe 50 feet away, turning, trying to cut us off. I told Sarah to keep going. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just swim. My arms burned. My legs cramped, but I kept going. I could hear the boat engine right behind us. Then I felt something. My foot hit bottom, shallow water. I stood up, pulled Sarah up. We ran, stumbling, splashing. The water was up to our knees, then our ankles. Then we were on land, mud, soft. We fell, got up, kept running. I looked back. The boat had stopped. Too shallow for them to follow. The sailors were at the railing, shouting. One of them was pointing a flashlight at us, but they didn't jump in. They didn't follow. We kept running. We ran until we couldn't anymore. Then we collapsed. Mud everywhere. Our clothes soaked. Our lungs burning. But we were off the boat. We were on land. Sarah was sobbing, shaking. I held her. I told her we were okay. We made it. She didn't respond. Just cried. I looked around. It was dark. No lights, no village. Just fields. Empty land. The river behind us. The boat was still there. I could see its lights. But it wasn't moving toward us. It was just sitting there, watching, waiting. I knew they couldn't leave. They had to stay on the river. They couldn't chase us on foot. But I also knew we weren't safe yet. We needed to find help. We needed to get far away from that river. We stayed on the ground for a few minutes, catching our breath, trying to process what just happened. The mud was cold and wet. It stuck to our skin. Our clothes, everything. Sarah was still shaking. I helped her sit up. I asked if she was hurt. She shook her head. Just scared. I was scared too. But we couldn't stay there. The boat was still visible. The lights, the shapes of the sailors on deck. They were watching us. I could feel it. We needed to move. I pulled Sarah to her feet. We started walking, away from the river, into the darkness. The ground was uneven, muddy in some places, hard and cracked in others. We stumbled a lot. There was almost no light, just the moon. It was enough to see shapes but not details. We walked for maybe 20 minutes. My shoes were soaked, heavy. Every step took effort. Sarah was limping. I asked if she was okay. She said her ankle hurt. She must have twisted it when we jumped. I told her to lean on me. We kept going. Slower now. But we kept going. I looked back every few minutes. The boat lights were getting smaller, farther away. That was good. But we still had no idea where we were going. After another 10 minutes, we saw something. A structure. Low. Dark. We got closer. It was a small building, mud brick, abandoned. The roof was half gone. The door was missing. We went inside. It smelled like dirt and animal waste. But it was shelter. We sat down against the wall. Sarah was breathing hard. She said her ankle was swelling. I couldn't see it in the dark, but I believed her. I told her we would rest here for a bit. Then we would keep moving. She nodded. She closed her eyes. I stayed alert, listening, watching the doorway, making sure no one followed us. I don't know how long we sat there, maybe an hour, maybe less. Time felt strange, stretched out. Every sound made me jump. The wind, something moving outside, a bird. I was exhausted, but I couldn't relax. My mind kept replaying everything. The boat, the sailors, Ahmed's warning, the jump, the swim. It all felt unreal, like a nightmare. But it wasn't. It was real, and we weren't safe yet. I looked at Sarah. She had fallen asleep, her head against the wall. I didn't want to wake her, but we couldn't stay there. We needed to find people, a village, a road, something. I gently shook her shoulder. She woke up startled, confused. Then she remembered. I helped her stand. She tested her ankle, winced, but she said she could walk. We left the building and kept moving. The land was flat, endless. In the distance, I could see the faint outline of hills, or maybe dunes. I wasn't sure. We walked toward them. There was nothing else to aim for. The sky was starting to lighten. Dawn was coming. That was good. We would be able to see better. But it also meant the crew would be able to see us if they were looking. We needed to find help before full daylight. As the sun came up, we saw more. Fields. Some green. Some dry. A few palm trees scattered around. And in the distance, smoke. Thin. Rising into the air. That meant people. A fire. A village. Something. We changed direction, headed toward the smoke. Sarah's limp was getting worse. I offered to carry her. She said no. She said she could make it. We walked for another 30 minutes. The sun was fully up now, hot. The temperature was rising fast. We had no water, no food, nothing. Just wet clothes and exhausted bodies. But the smoke was getting closer. We reached a small village, maybe 20 buildings. Mud brick. Simple. A few chickens wandering around. A donkey tied to a post. People were starting to move. An old woman came out of a house. She saw us and stopped. Stared. We must have looked insane. Soaked. Covered in mud. Stumbling. I tried to speak. I said we needed help. She didn't understand. I tried again. Slower. Help. Police. She just looked at us. Confused. Then a man came out. Younger, maybe 40. He said something in Arabic. I shook my head. I said English. Do you speak English? He shook his head. No English, but he pointed at us, then at the river. He said something, a question. I nodded. Yes. river, boat, bad, danger. I didn't know if he understood, but he motioned for us to follow him. He led us to another house. Bigger. He knocked on the door. Someone answered. Another man, older, gray hair. The younger man explained something. Fast, pointing at us, pointing toward the river. The older man looked at us, then nodded. He said something and motioned us inside. We followed him. The house was dark, cool, a relief from the sun. He pointed to a bench. We sat. He brought water, 2 cups. We drank fast. Too fast. He refilled them. We drank again. He said something to the younger man. Then he left. The younger man stayed with us. He smiled, trying to be reassuring, but he didn't speak English. We just sat there, waiting. 20 minutes later, the older man came back. With him was another man, younger, maybe 30. He wore a uniform, light blue, a badge, police. He spoke English, broken but understandable. He asked what happened. I told him. Everything. The boat, the crew, the captain, being trapped, not allowed to leave, the jump, the swim. He listened. His face was serious. He asked where the boat was. I said on the river. South of here. Maybe a few miles. He nodded. He said he would call it in. He used a radio. Spoke in Arabic. Fast. Official tone. Then he turned back to us. He said help was coming. He said we were safe now. Sarah started crying again. Relief, exhaustion, everything hitting her at once. I put my arm around her. I felt my own eyes water. We were safe. We had made it. The police officer said his name was Hassan. He said we should eat something, drink more water, rest. He said it would take time for his colleagues to arrive. We were in a remote area. I asked about the boat. He said they would find it. He said the river police would handle it. I wanted to believe him. But part of me worried the boat was already gone, that the crew had disappeared, that there would be no evidence, no justice. We stayed in that house for 3 hours. The villagers were kind. They brought us food, bread, cheese, dates, tea. We ate slowly. Our stomachs weren't used to food anymore. A woman brought Sarah dry clothes, a long dress, simple but clean. Another man brought me a shirt and pants. Too big but better than the wet clothes. We changed, felt a little more human. Hassan stayed with us. He asked more questions, details, names, descriptions. I told him everything I could remember. The captain, Rashid, the sailors, Ahmed, the boat itself. He wrote it all down. He said it would help. Around noon we heard vehicles, loud, getting closer. Hassan went outside. We followed. 2 trucks, police vehicles. 4 officers got out. They spoke with Hassan. Fast, urgent. Then one of them came over to us. He introduced himself. Captain Nabil. He said they had located the boat. It was still on the river, about 5 miles south. They had radioed the river police. A patrol boat was on the way. He said we would need to come with them, to identify the crew, to give official statements. I said we would. Anything to make sure those men didn't do this to anyone else. We got in one of the trucks. Hassan came with us. The ride was rough. Dirt roads. Bumpy. Sarah held my hand the whole time. Neither of us spoke. We just looked out the window. At the fields, the river in the distance, the same river that had been our prison. Now it just looked like water. Brown. Calm. Indifferent. We drove for about 30 minutes. Then we reached another village. Bigger. There was a dock. And at the dock, the boat. Our boat, surrounded by police. A patrol boat was tied next to it. Officers were on board. I could see the crew, sitting on the deck, hands behind their backs, handcuffed. Captain Nabil told us to stay in the truck. He went to talk to the officers on the boat. We watched. The crew looked small now, powerless. the opposite of how they had seemed on the river. One of them looked up, saw us in the truck. His expression didn't change. No guilt, no fear. Just blank. That made me angry. These men had terrorized us, trapped us, and they showed nothing. No remorse, no humanity. Sarah looked away. She said she didn't want to see them. I understood. I didn't want to see them either. But I needed to. I needed to know they were caught. That they couldn't hurt anyone else. Captain Nabil came back. He said we needed to identify them, officially. We got out of the truck, walked down to the dock. The officers brought the crew off the boat one by one. I identified each one. The two older sailors. The big one who blocked us. The one who tried to grab us when we jumped. Ahmed was last. He looked terrified. He wouldn't look at us. I told Captain Nabil that Ahmed had helped us. That he told us about the dinghy. That he warned us to lock our door. Nabil wrote it down. He said it would be noted. But Ahmed was still arrested. He was part of the crew, part of what happened. I felt bad for him, but I also knew he could have done more. He could have helped us escape sooner. He chose not to. The captain, Rashid, was brought out last. He looked calm. Too calm. Like this was just an inconvenience, not a crime. Nabil asked if this was the captain. I said yes. Nabil said something to him in Arabic. Sharp. Angry. Rashid responded. Casual. Dismissive. Nabil's face hardened. He turned to me and said the captain claimed we were difficult passengers, that we refused to follow the schedule, that we jumped off the boat because we were drunk and stupid. I felt rage rise in my chest. I said that was a lie. I said we begged to leave. We tried to get off at multiple stops. We were blocked, threatened, trapped. Nabil said he believed us. He said the evidence would speak for itself. The boat would be searched. The crew would be questioned separately. The truth would come out. We gave our statements. Long, detailed. Everything from the moment we boarded to the moment we reached the village. It took hours. By the time we finished, it was late afternoon. We were exhausted. Physically, emotionally, mentally. Nabil said we could go. He said they would take us to Luxor, to a hotel. He said we should rest, see a doctor. Then we could decide what to do next. We agreed. We got back in the truck. As we drove away, I looked back one last time. The boat was still there. The crew was being loaded into another vehicle, and the river kept flowing. Like nothing had happened. Like it didn't care. We arrived in Luxor just before sunset. The city felt overwhelming after days of isolation. Cars, people, noise. Everything was too much, too fast, too loud. Captain Nabil took us to a hotel. Not the one we had stayed at before. A different one, closer to the police station. He said officers would be nearby if we needed anything. He gave us his card. He said to call if we remembered anything else, or if we felt unsafe. Then he left. We stood in the hotel lobby, still wearing the borrowed clothes from the village, still covered in dried mud in places. The receptionist looked at us with concern. She didn't ask questions, just gave us a key. Room 207, second floor. The room was simple, 2 beds, a bathroom. Clean. Quiet. Sarah went straight to the bathroom. I heard the shower start. I sat on the bed. My whole body ached, my muscles, my joints, everything. I hadn't realized how tense I had been, how much fear I had been carrying. Now that we were safe, it all hit me at once. I felt dizzy, nauseous. I put my head in my hands and tried to breathe, tried to process everything that had happened. But my mind couldn't hold it. It kept jumping, from the boat to the water to the village to the police. Nothing felt real. Nothing made sense. Sarah came out of the bathroom 30 minutes later. Her hair was wet. Her face was red. She had been crying in the shower, I could tell. She didn't say anything. just climbed into bed and pulled the covers over herself. I went to shower. The water was hot, almost too hot, but I stood under it anyway, letting it burn, letting it wash away the river, the mud, the fear. I scrubbed my skin until it hurt. I washed my hair 3 times. When I finally got out, I felt clean, but I didn't feel better. I still felt the weight of everything. I got into the other bed. We didn't talk. We just lay there, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark except for a sliver of light coming through the curtains. Street light. I could hear the city outside. Cars honking. People talking. Life continuing like normal. But nothing felt normal for us. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I did, I dreamed of water. Brown water. Pulling me down. I woke up gasping, sweating. Sarah was awake too. She had heard me. She asked if I was okay. I said yes, but I wasn't. Neither of us was. The next morning, Captain Nabil came to the hotel. He brought a doctor, a woman, maybe 50. Kind face. She examined us, checked Sarah's ankle. It was badly swollen, bruised. The doctor said it was a severe sprain, not broken. She wrapped it, gave Sarah painkillers. Then she checked me. Cuts on my hands and feet from the rocks and mud. Bruises on my arms and legs. She cleaned the cuts, bandaged them. She asked if we were eating, sleeping. I said we were trying. She said we were in shock. She said it was normal. She said we should rest, drink water, eat when we could. She said if we felt worse, we should go to the hospital. Then she left. Nabil stayed. He said they had searched the boat, found our passports, our phones, our money. Everything had been locked in the captain's cabin. He said that proved we weren't free to leave, that we were being held. He said the crew was being questioned. Ahmed had confessed. He said the captain had planned to take us further down the river, to a more isolated area, then demand ransom, contact our families, our banks. He said it had happened before, to other tourists. But those cases were never reported. The victims paid and left Egypt immediately, too scared to involve police, too ashamed. Nabil said we were the first to escape, the first to fight back. He said because of us the crew would face serious charges, kidnapping, extortion, maybe more. I asked about Ahmed. Nabil said Ahmed was cooperating. He was young, scared. He said Ahmed claimed he didn't know the full plan until it was too late. He said Ahmed would likely face lighter charges, maybe just probation. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me wanted him punished. He was part of it. But part of me remembered his warning, his fear, his attempt to help us. Sarah said she hoped he learned from this. I agreed. Nabil said we would need to stay in Egypt for a few more days, maybe a week, to complete the investigation, to testify if needed. He said we could change hotels if we wanted, go somewhere nicer, more comfortable. We said no. We just wanted to stay where we were, quiet, safe, away from crowds. The next few days were a blur. We barely left the room. We ordered food, barely ate it. We watched TV, didn't really pay attention. We tried to sleep, woke up from nightmares. Sarah's ankle slowly healed. The swelling went down. She could walk without limping. But the mental wounds were harder. She flinched at loud noises. She couldn't be in small spaces. Even the elevator made her panic. She said she kept seeing the crew, their faces, their eyes. She said she kept feeling the boat rocking, even on solid ground. I felt it too. The constant motion. Like my body couldn't accept that we were off the water. On the 4th day, Nabil came back. He said the investigation was progressing. The crew had been formally charged. The captain was denying everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. Our statements, Ahmed's confession, the locked cabin, the seized boat. He said we could leave Egypt if we wanted. The trial would take months. We wouldn't need to be there. Our statements were enough. He said we could go home. We thanked him. We said we would leave as soon as possible. He understood. He said most people in our situation would have left immediately. He said he respected that we stayed to help with the case. Then he left. That was the last time we saw him. We booked flights for the next day, back to Cairo, then home to Austin. We packed the few things we had. The hotel gave us our belongings that the police had returned. Our phones, our wallets, our passports. I turned on my phone. Dozens of messages. My mom, my friends, my boss, all asking where I was. Why I hadn't responded. I didn't reply. Not yet. I couldn't explain it all in a text. Sarah's phone was the same. Messages, missed calls, voicemails. She turned it off. Said she would deal with it later. We just wanted to get home. The flight to Cairo was short. We didn't talk much. Just held hands, looked out the window. The Nile was below us, winding through the desert. From up here it looked beautiful, peaceful. But we knew better. We knew what it could hide, what could happen on its waters. When we landed in Cairo, we had a few hours before our flight to the US. We sat in the airport, drank coffee, watched people, families, couples, tourists excited about their trips. We used to be like them, excited, hopeful. Now we were different, changed. We had seen something most people never see. We had survived something most people never face. The flight home was long, 14 hours. We slept most of it. Exhausted sleep. When we landed in Austin, it was raining. Cold. Gray. The opposite of Egypt. We took a cab to Sarah's apartment. My car was still there. Parked where I left it almost 2 weeks ago. It felt like years. We stood in the parking lot. Rain falling on us. Sarah said she didn't want to be alone. I said I would stay. We went inside. The apartment was exactly how we left it. Clean. Organized. Normal. But we weren't normal anymore. That night we talked. Really talked. For the first time since the boat. Sarah said she didn't think she could travel again. Not for a long time. Maybe never. She said she didn't trust people anymore. Didn't trust situations. Didn't trust herself to read danger. I said I understood. I felt the same way. I said we would get through it. Together. She asked how. I said I didn't know. But we would try. We had survived the worst. We could survive the aftermath. She cried. I cried. We held each other. And for the first time since we jumped off that boat, I felt like maybe we would be okay. Not today. Not tomorrow. But eventually, the physical wounds healed fast. Sarah's ankle, my cuts and bruises. Within 2 weeks we looked normal again. But the mental scars remained. Sarah started therapy. So did I. We talked about the boat, about the fear, about the helplessness. It helped. Slowly. We told our families what happened. They were horrified, supportive. But they didn't really understand. How could they? They weren't there. They didn't feel what we felt. Sarah and I were the only ones who truly knew. And that bond, that shared trauma, it brought us closer. Closer than we had been in years. The trip that was supposed to save our relationship. It did. Just not the way we expected. It's been 8 months since Egypt. 8 months since the Nile. 8 months since we jumped off that boat and swam for our lives. People ask us about it sometimes. Friends, co-workers, strangers who hear the story somehow. They ask if we're okay, if we've gotten over it. We say yes. We smile. We say we're fine. But the truth is more complicated. We're alive. We're safe. But we're not the same people who boarded that boat looking for romance and adventure. That version of us died somewhere on the river. What came back was different. Harder. More careful. More aware of how quickly things can go wrong. Sarah still has nightmares. Not as often as before. But they come. She dreams about the boat, about being trapped, about the sailors blocking the door. She wakes up sweating, shaking. I hold her until she calms down. I have my own nightmares. I dream about the water, about drowning, about not making it to shore, about Sarah disappearing under the surface. I wake up reaching for her, making sure she's there, making sure we're both still here. The therapist says it will fade, that trauma takes time, that our brains are processing what happened, that eventually the nightmares will stop. We believe her. We have to. We never went back to Egypt. We probably never will. It's not that we hate the country. We know what happened to us was the exception, not the rule. We know most people travel the Nile safely, have beautiful experiences, go home with amazing memories. But for us, the river will always mean something else. It will always mean fear, imprisonment, survival. We can't separate the beauty from the terror, and we don't want to try. Some places you can't go back to. Some experiences you can't redo. Egypt is one of those places for us. We did travel again. Eventually. 6 months after we got back. We went to Colorado. Mountains, hiking, fresh air. It was Sarah's idea. She said she needed to prove to herself that she could still do it. That one bad trip wouldn't destroy her love of travel. I was hesitant. But I supported her. We went for a long weekend, stayed in a small cabin, hiked during the day, sat by the fire at night. It was good. Quiet. Safe. No boats. No water. No strangers with hidden agendas. Just us and the mountains. It helped. It showed us that travel could still be good. That the world wasn't all danger. But we were different travelers now. More cautious. More aware. Always watching. Always planning escape routes. Always trusting our instincts. The trial happened 3 months ago. We weren't there. We didn't need to be. Our statements were enough. Captain Nabil emailed us the verdict. The captain got 12 years. The 2 older sailors got 8 years each. Ahmed got 2 years probation. He was released immediately. Time served while awaiting trial. Nabil said Ahmed had helped the prosecution, testified against the others, showed genuine remorse. He said Ahmed was young, stupid, easily influenced, but not evil. I don't know if I agree, but I'm glad he got a lighter sentence. He did try to help us, in his own small way. The others, though, I hope they serve every day of their sentences. I hope they think about what they did, about the fear they caused, about how close they came to ruining our lives, or ending them. Sarah and I are still together, stronger than before. The trip that was supposed to fix our relationship did exactly that, just not how we planned. Shared trauma has a way of bonding people. We understand each other now in a way we didn't before. We know what the other is capable of. We've seen each other at our worst. Terrified, desperate, helpless. And we've seen each other at our best. Fighting, surviving, protecting each other. That kind of experience changes a relationship, makes it deeper, more real. We talk about getting married, about building a life together, about having kids someday. Things we used to avoid talking about. Now they feel possible, important, because we know how fragile life is, how quickly it can be taken away. We don't want to waste time anymore. We tell our story when people ask, not all of it, just the basics. We were trapped on a boat. We escaped. We survived. We don't go into details unless someone really wants to know. Most people don't. They hear the headline and that's enough. Tourist couple trapped on Nile cruise. It sounds like a news article, not real life. But it was real. It happened to us. And we carry it with us every day, in the nightmares, in the caution, in the way we look at water now. But we also carry the survival, the strength, the knowledge that when it mattered most, when our lives were on the line, we didn't give up. We fought. We ran. We swam. We made it. And that's something no one can take from us. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment telling us what you thought, and share this video with someone who loves travel stories. Stay safe out there. The world is beautiful, but it can also be dangerous. Trust your instincts, watch out for each other, and never stop fighting. See you in the next one.